Welcome back guys. In this video I'll be comparing the image quality, performance and latency of LSFG version 3 and AFMF 2 AMD's driver level implementation of frame generation. LSFG is included with a paid application called lossless scaling that sells on Steam Store for around $7. It works on any GPU, whether it's from Intel, Nvidia or AMD, it doesn't matter. AFMF2 on the other hand is completely free, but it's only available for AMD RX 6000 and 7000 series GPUs. AMD's integrated 700M and 800M series GPUs also supported. If I'm not wrong, Rog Ally is the first handheld PC in the world to officially support AFMF2. I'll keep the playing field level by using similar settings for both of these frame generation techniques. We'll target the best possible image quality. I'll kick things off with Fallout 4 London. In this game I am using Buffered 4 and High Physics Fix mods. In Buffered 4 I have set the memory management to false, and in High Physics Fix I have enabled borderless display mode. I'll quickly show you these settings. Open the games install directory, open data folder, open FOSC folder, open plugins folder, open Buffered 4 folder, open config.toml file using notepad. From here just set memory manager to false. This will fix most of the crashing issues. File, save. Again open the games install directory, open data folder, FOSC folder, plugins folder. From here just open high FPS physics fix INI file. Full screen set to false, borderless set to true. Click on file, click on save. Show you the game settings now. Options, 900p resolution, anti-aliasing TA using the medium preset. Advanced. From here I have disabled motion blur, lens flare disabled as well. Depth of field set to standard. That's it. Adrenaline settings for the game: resync on, VSync off, anti-lag setting on, RSI enable, sharpen effect set to 75. I have set the UMA buffer size to 6 GB. My ally is running on BIOS version 441. Install AMD's GPU driver, Adrenaline Edition version 24.12.1. Using a 30 watts manual profile, all three power values set at 30 watts, 900p resolution, CPU boost off. Connected my 8-bit to Ultimate 2C controller to Rog Ally via 2.4 GHz band wireless mode. Ally's display supports up to 120Hz refresh rate, so I'll apply a 60 FPS cap using RTSS. First I'll be testing LSFG. Quickly show you its settings, not using any of lossless scaling subscaling algorithms. LSFG version 3.0 selected, X2 mode selected. It will try to double the FPS, resolution scale 100%. Clip cursor setting on. Sync mode default, maximum latency 1. Draw FPS setting on. Capture API TXTI. That's it. Settings. Hotkey for enabling LSFG, Control Alt and S. Start as administrator setting on. Minimize the app. Run the game. We'll be using a custom afterburner overlay to show you the performance metrics. We are in. This is the game running without any frame generation technique. Here FPS is within a range of 50 to 60. Image quality is looking sharp. HUD elements are not flickering. No artifacts around the equipped item, that is the knife. Now I'll enable LSFG, 45 FPS here. This particular area is very demanding. See. Press its hotkey combo, Control Alt and S. Worked. Back to the game. Here I can observe the added amount of smoothness. Base FPS dropped to around 39. Without LSFG, here FPS was around 45. All frame generation techniques come with a hit on the GPU overhead. Okay, I am observing some garbled textures around the knife. HUD elements are not flickering though, but there are some artifacts around the knife at its edge, or rather I should say at its tip. See? Yeah. So minor graphical artifacts are present. Smoothing effect is very impressive. 90 to 100 FPS, not bad at all. Frame generation effect does not get disabled during fast visual motion. Explore the area. Latency is not a problem. I am observing some minor flickering around the crosshair as well during fast visual motion like this, and I move the camera in complete circles. Now I'll test the game using AFMF2. Open the game's adrenaline settings. From here, enable AFMF2. Set search mode to high. This prevents frame generation effect from getting disabled during fast visual motion. Performance mode set to quality. VSync is off. Launch the game. Need to use Adrenaline's overlay to show the FPS count with AFMF2 enabled. Afterburner won't be able to show the true FPS count. I am using anti-lag 2's FPS counter to show you the base FPS value. In Adrenaline's overlay, you can see the FPS count with AFMF2 on. Load the exact same sequence. Base FPS is around 39. FPS with AFMF2 on 78. Now I'll move the camera in complete circles. Can observe the added amount of smoothness, but I'm also observing some ugly ghosting around my knife. See? This ghosting was not present when I was using LSFG. Minor artifacts were present around the knife's edge. Okay, game's HUD elements are also flickering. So in terms of image quality, LSFG wins in this game. Crosshair is also flickering. In terms of latency and performance, it's a tie between LSFG and AFMF2. You can always play this game in third person mode. This way you won't observe the flickering around your equipped item. I'll be testing the next game, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. First I'll test the game with LSFG. Adrenaline settings for the game: VSync on, VSync off, anti-lag setting on, AFMF2 disabled for the time being. Graphics setting using the medium preset. Ray tracing off, XeSS subscaler using its quality preset. Motion blur off, bloom disabled as well, depth of field enabled, chromatic aberration and vignetting disabled. Everything set to medium. Display settings: 900p resolution, display mode, borderless window. That's it. There's Carol standing at the entrance of Novigrad. Here FPS is within a range of 50 to 60. Rog riding around. I'll enable LSFG now. Game is already running so smoothly. Enabled. Back to the game. Base FPS dropped to around 44. FPS with frame generation 86. LSFG came with a massive hit on the performance. Can observe the added amount of smoothness. This is amazing. Okay, I'm also observing some garbled textures around the left and right edges of the display. Easily noticeable during fast visual motion. I'm also observing some ghosting around Geralt's swords, around the sword handle. Frame generation smoothing effect is consistent. Okay, Geralt's head is also flickering. See, all of these issues occur when I move the camera in complete circles. These issues are less aggressive when I move the camera at a normal speed like this. Input delay is not a problem. Riding through Novigrad, FPS stays close to 80. I am also observing a strip of garbled textures around the bottom edge of the display. It's a bit difficult to observe this on a small display, but it's definitely present. See? Now I'll test AFMF2. Open the game's adrenaline settings. From here just enable AFMF2. Search mode set to high. Performance mode set to quality. VSync off. Anti-lag on. Game load up. Same sequence. Base FPS is around 45. 3 FPS higher than what we were getting using LSFG. FPS with frame generation on 90. Oh my god. Look at that smoothing effect. This is amazing. And I'm not observing those garbled textures around the left and right edges of the display. but there is some ghosting around Geralt's sword. See, during fast visual motion, frame generation effect does not get disabled. A ghosting is present around the swords. Minor graphical artifact. So in terms of image quality, AFMF2 won, and I'll be honest, AFMF2's latency seems to be lower than that of LSFG in this game. Performance is also slightly better. Entering no regret. If performance remains stable, I'll give the win to AFMF2. Very good experience. HUD elements are not flickering. Ghosting around the swords does not occur when you move the camera at a normal speed like this. Now I'll be testing the next one, AFMF2 on in this game. Silent Hill 2 Remake. I'll be running the game using TXVK Vulkan, which helps in improving the game's performance, reduce stuttering. This game supports both DirectX 11 and 12 APIs, so I basically ran the game in DirectX 11 mode and then used TXVK to translate DirectX 11 calls to Vulkan, as you can see. Unfortunately, upscalers like FSR and XeSS don't work with DirectX 11 mode. Display mode set to borderless, 720p resolution. VSync off. Need to use TSR super sampling using its normal preset. Game's quality preset set to low. Game adrenaline profile. FreeSync on. AFMF2 disable for the time being. Anti-lag enable. VSync off. We are in. This is the game running without any frame generation technique. Yeah, here FPS is within a range of 40 to 50. Gameplay is a bit jarring. We are outside NSVR range, that is 48 to 120. I'll just enable LSFG now. Thick fog in the area. DXVK really helps in reducing stuttering in this game. Control Alt and S keys. Yeah, LSFG is working. Base FPS dropped down to around 40. FPS with frame generation 80. Look at that smoothness. But I'm also observing some ghosting around James, his character model. See? Can observe some latency. Yeah, base FPS is on the lower side this time, 38. Latency is inversely proportional to the base FPS. Lower the base FPS, higher the latency. Still, it's a playable experience. Yes, engage in combat. There's a creeper here under this car, and there it is. Backed it. There were a few hiccups there. Good experience with LSFG. Now I'll test the same sequence using AFMF2. FreeSync on, VSync off. AFMF2 on, search mode set to high, performance mode quality. Moving the camera in complete circles, can observe the added amount of smoothness. Not observing that ghosting effect around James' character model. Base FPS is within a range of 40 to 45. FPS with frame generation on 80 to 90. Roughly the same performance using AFMF2 and LSFG, but in terms of image quality, AFMF2 is better. AFMF2's latency does seem to be better than that of LSFG. Its frame generation effect does not get disabled during fast visual motion. Engage in combat. Here it is. This game barely has any HUD. Map, no issues here. Now I'll test the next game. Now I'll be running everyone's favorite GTA 5. Adrenaline settings for the game. VSync enable, AFMF2 disable, anti-lag setting enable, VSync off. In-game settings, display mode borderless, resolution 900p, FXAA enable, MSAA disable, VSync off. Max out the sliders, population density, population variety and distance scaling. Very high settings. Reflection MSA set to 2 times. Motion blur disabled. Isotropic filtering 16 times. That's it. With these settings, GPU load will be around 80%, leaving some GPU headroom for LSFG to work properly. See, yeah, FPS is locked at 60. Very responsive controls. Game is already running very smoothly without any frame generation technique. Now I'll enable LSFG. Resume the game. Base FPS dropped to around 55, but FPS with frame generation is close to 110. Look at that smoothness. This is just amazing. Ideal scenario for using LSFG when base FPS is close to 60. I'm not observing any artifacts around Franklin's character model. His head is not flickering. This used to happen in the older versions of LSFG. HUD elements, oh my god, this guy ran over me. HUD elements are not flickering. Subtitles are also not flickering. Latency is not a problem. Everything is perfect. I'll just drive around the city now. This sequence is heavy on the CPU. Still the FPS is within a range of 50 to 60, not bad. Almost hitting the GPU bottleneck. So excellent results with LSFG. Now I'll be testing the game using AFMF2. Adrenaline settings for the game. AFMF2 on. Search mode set to high. Performance mode set to quality. VSync off. Anti-lag on. FreeSync on. Same sequence again. Base FPS is within a range of 55 to 60. FPS with frame generation on 110. No issues with the latency. Frame generation lag value 14 milliseconds. I'm not observing any artifacts around Franklin's character model. HUD elements are also not flickering. It's a tie between LSFG and AFMF in this game. Identical performance. Driving around. Locked 60 FPS. Slightly better performance using AFMF2. Here FPS did drop down to around 50-55 when I was using LSFG. This did not happen in the case of AFMF2. Now it dropped to around 55, back up to 60, and test the next game. Now I'll be testing the third act of Baldur's Gate 3. Adrenaline settings for the game. FreeSync on, VSync off, anti-lag setting on, AFMF2 disable for the time being. In-game video settings, display mode, borderless window, 720p resolution, VSync off, no FPS cap applied, FSR 2.2 enable using its quality preset. Shadow quality and texture quality set to medium, rest of the settings set to low. Anti-aliasing none, as I have enable FSR 2. Depth of field disabled as well, effects disabled. There's Karlak and my teammates. Here FPS is within a range of 35 to 45. GPU load is close to 70%. We have enough free GPU resources for LSFG to work properly. I'll just enable it. Resume the game. Base FPS did not change much, 40 to 45. FPS is frame generation on 70 to 80. Can observe the added amount of smoothness. That jarring animation is gone now. LSFG works very nicely in this game. GPU load is around 76%. I'll head to a more crowded area. Not observing any graphical artifacts around Karlak's character model. Even the HUD elements are not flickering. This is the lower city. Yeah, 36 FPS. Still the game is running smoothly. 70 FPS with frame generation. These magical effects are very demanding. They are not slowing down the game. All thanks to LSFG GPU load increase. See, almost 90%. Now I'll test the game using AFMF2. Adrenaline settings for the game. Just enable AFMF2 from here. Search mode set to high, performance mode set to quality. DirectX 11 version of the game. Same sequence. Base FPS is within a range of 35 to 40. FPS with frame generation on 70 to 80. Can observe the added amount of smoothness. Latency is not a problem in this game. It's not a shooter. Again, roughly the same performance using LSFG and AFMF2. Not observing any artifacts around Alex character model. Third elements are also not flickering. Going to that crowded place. Base FPS should drop down to around 30. Yeah, it's happening. Made it. I'm just waiting for them to cast their spells. GPU utilization here is around 80 to 84%. With LSFG on, GPU load increased to around 90%. Oh, it happened even in the case of AFMF2. Identical performance. Now I'll test the next game. Now I'll be running God of War 2018. I'll show you its adrenaline settings. FreeSync on, AFMF2 disable for the time being. Anti-lag setting on, VSync off. Display settings, mode set to borderless, 900p resolution. VSync and triple buffering disabled. Motion blur and film grain disabled as well. FSR2 upscale enable using its quality preset. Using the original graphics preset. My current location shows of 9. This particular area is very heavy on the CPU. You can see the world serpent in the background. Yeah, FPS is close to 40. Not hitting the GPU bottleneck. Animation is looking so jarring. FPS stays close to 40. 76% GPU load. I'll just enable LSFG now. Press its hotkey combo. Control Alt and S. Base FPS dropped to around 36. FPS with frame generation on 72. I'll move the camera in complete circles. Yeah, can observe the added amount of smoothness. Okay, the head of Kratos is flickering. See? This flickering effect is not very aggressive when I move the camera at a normal speed like this. But when I move it in complete circles, yeah, flickering becomes aggressive. Hard elements are not flickering, as you can see. This FPS stays close to 35 and FPS with frame generation stays close to 70. Sprinting. You can use LSFG, minor graphical artifacts. Now I'll test the same sequence using AFMF2. We'll see whether the head of Kratos will flicker or not. Adrenaline settings for the game. Just enable AFMF2 from here. Search mode set to high, performance mode set to quality. VSync off, VSync on, anti-lag on. Load the same sequence. Yeah, the base FPS is close to 35. FPS with AFMF 71. Identical performance using AFMF and LSFG in this game. Can observe the added amount of smoothness. Jarring animation is gone, fixed. But I am also observing some ghosting around the character model of Kratos. His head is not flickering this time. So AFMF2 produced its own graphical artifact. This ghosting effect is not observable easily when you're moving the camera at a normal speed like this. I think it does not occur at all. See? So if I had to pick between these two techniques in this game, I would pick AFMF2, roughly the same latency. You can call it a tie. Time to conclude the video. In the end, there was no clear winner between these two frame generation techniques, but one thing is for sure, both of them do an amazing job when it comes to improving a game's performance. The smoothing effect works very nicely. Personally, I felt that AFMF2's latency was slightly lower than that of LSFG, but it was not a big difference. I was easily able to perceive this latency difference when I used to compare the older version of LSFG with AFMF2, but this is not the case with LSFG version 3. Both techniques can produce some graphical artifacts and it varies from game to game. For example, in Fallout London, AFMF2 produced very ugly ghosting around a equipped item and even the HUD elements were flickering. This was not the case with LSFG version 3. The roles got reversed in Witcher 3. LSFG produced very ugly graphical artifacts around the edges of the display. Geralt's head was also flickering. These issues were not present in the case of AFMF2. But in other games, it was mostly a tie. In God of War 2018, the head flickering issue was again present. This issue is not present in the case of AFMF2, but AFMF2 produced ghosting around the character model. This is why I prefer using FSR frame generation wherever it's available. So that's it with the video guys. I hope you find it useful. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.